All right, you're welcome back. And it's still Dialogue in Diaspora coming to you live from Ben Television. I'm Mr. Tunde Alabi. I'm now joined by Mr. Adegboye Bisi. He is the Postmaster General Nigeria and also the CEO of NIPOST. Mr. Adegboye, thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning.
You're welcome and happy Independence Day.
Same here. Thanks for having me.
And I'm still joined by Mr. Alaba Yusuf. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much.
And also Elumba. Thank you for joining us. A pleasure, Mr. Elumba, join us on the show. Let me come to you, Mr. Degwe. Before you came in on the show, we're talking about the progress that Nigeria has made in terms of national development and growth, and of course, its unity in the last 57 years. Can I just have your view about Nigeria?
Well, Nigeria is work in progress, but let me enter a caveat here.
Yeah.
I'm a public servant. I'm the Postmaster General of Nigeria. I'm not supposed to be talking politics.
You're not talking politics,
but I can.
Your assessment of Nigeria.
Assessment of Nigeria is work in progress, as I've said. The truth of the matter is that before the advent of the present government, it was public knowledge that things were going from bad to worse. Reps ipsa loquitur, the facts were all there. So it would take a leader with a vision, with a stoic determination to take the bull by the horn and change the trajectory of Nigeria, which I believe is we're doing. I'm a member of the government. A lot of grounds will still have to be covered in the sense that if a system had deteriorated for 16 years, naturally you need time to embark on journey of transformation and putting things in proper place.
How would we exclude the government of the leaders of yesterday and the leaders of today from the deterioration of Nigeria? Can we?
Well, for me, I've always said that we have a systemic problem in Nigeria. Leadership also is an integral part of that. But if you have a leader who is determined, who has zero tolerance for corruption, who is not a member of the thieving gang, because, I mean, people, they have stolen Nigeria blind until President Muhammadu Buhari came on the saddle.
Can one man do it? It's a battle for one man? Is it reflecting in Nigeria?
It is not a battle for one man, but a man can influence the system.
Is he influencing the system?
In my view, yes, because we're seeing different things being done. Let's go into power. We abandoned hydro, all other areas of power generation and concentrated on thermal power. For the very first time since 1972, a contract has just been awarded to reactivate Mambila hydropower project in Jos. That will generate 3,000 to 4,000 megawatts. That's not a mean achievement. Before the present government came into being, let's do some arithmetic. I was on this show when you were in Tottenham Court Road, and I said, do an arithmetic of the power generation when President Obasanjo assumed office. We were generating 2,800 megawatts. By the time they left, PDP government, the generation was a paltry 4,000 megawatts, or 4,005. Addition of 1,700 megawatts, at what cost? Allow me to discuss my primary responsibility as the Postmaster General of Nigeria, to talk about the transformation, modernization of Nigerian postal services that is underway under my leadership. And for the very first time, because the president is determined to change the trajectory of vital national institutions, somebody from the private sector, without any spirit of modesty myself, was appointed as the Postmaster General of Nigeria to turn things around. I visited all the nooks and crannies of Nigeria, where postal locations are, and on the basis of what we have done, we have launched, for the very first time, a blueprint based on the report of NetPort consultants. that previous government abandoned. World Bank, in conjunction with Network Consultants, paid a lot of money. But the reports were just there, gathering dust. I got there, 1 year, 1 month in office. I've implemented about 80% of the recommendations. The postal reform bill had been at the National Assembly under the previous government. I got there, within 1 year, 1 month, we have carried out public hearing, and it's about to be passed into law that will attract local and international investment into the Nigerian Postal Service so that we can join the rest of the world. We can subscribe to global best practice. It is a shame that because of oil, wasting assets, we have abandoned other critical areas of national life. And that is what this present government is doing, amongst other things. But let me stay on my track. Postal Service revolution is underway.
Elenba.
Yes.
I mean, you were one of the indices for measuring national growth and development. It's not good. If not even national growth, you would not be measuring your growth by yourself. You would do some kind of comparative analysis, either with your friends, with your partner, with your work colleagues. You will not use yourself as a basis for analysis. Earlier on, you were comparing the growth Nigeria has attained with other nations. Let's look at other national areas of life in Nigeria. You say the current administration has moved us forward, Are we saying previous administration, before this administration, have been sleeping and have not done anything? Or that they have been wasteful that much that no progress has been made?
I think what happens with human governments in general is the lack of ability to foresee the future, so that it's not just about Nigeria. When you when you think you've solved one problem, your solution creates 2 other problems, and you end up tackling 3 problems at the same time. Each administration in Nigeria has tried to build up the nation in its own ways. And it is not different with the President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. Even before him, Obasanjo, to his credit, introduced a lot of reforms to the economy. He has technocrats who try to reform the banking sector. They reform the banking sector where we have only 25 banks out of multiplicity of banks that led to the explosion of global best practices in the banking sector. And when we come down to Goodluck Jonathan himself again, he introduced the BVN in the banking. He introduced the customs, introducing electronic payment system in the customs system, and then that leads to explosion of the revenue from the customs. And then also the driving license system in other words, using technology to minimize incidents of corruption. However, having said that, the present administration may pride itself to have made some progress, as my friend has just enumerated. But one question I want to ask is this, just on 2 areas. First, this administration claimed that when it came to power, the price of oil came down, therefore limiting its ability to carry out its electoral promises. However, we've just learned that in the last 2 years, Nigeria's international debt profile has climbed from $10 billion to $15 billion. In other words, we have borrowed $5 billion more in the last 2 years. Its domestic debt profile has climbed from around 8.6 trillion to 14 trillion naira. In other words, this administration has borrowed internally about 6 trillion naira. If its year's budget is 6 trillion naira, that means we have borrowed an equivalent of 1 year's budget within the last 2 years. So can this administration honestly claim that the fall in our oil generating profile inhibits when it has borrowed more money to cushion up the effect of the fall in oil prices? Extra $5 billion and extra 6 trillion naira. That's just a question. Another question I want to ask is, this administration prides itself in fighting corruption. Well, how many people have been jailed? How many politicians have been jailed for corruption in the last 2 years? Anyone? How many people have If
But
it's
but we hear about people being arrested, being
yes,
persecuted.
but how many people have been jailed? That I just said jailed.
Are you saying
How many people have been? I just want to ask another question. If the predominant people that claim to be corrupt and are being tried is from the opposition party, how many people from its own party, the APC, are being persecuted for corruption? We learned that the former Secretary General of the Federation was indicted of corruption. The report has been submitted to the presidency. He has just been suspended. Why is he not being tried for corruption? If it claims to be fighting corruption, why are the people who have been indicted in the IDPs? All the money meant for the IDPs, we learned a lot of them have been siphoned. We learned how the contracts were awarded. Why are those people not being prosecuted for corruption? It's just a question.
Salaba, can we have a couple of answers to some of those one raised by my colleague there?
Yes, you see, cynicism is different from criticism. A cynic will see everything that is bad. A critic wants things better. So, as Nigerians, I believe so much in constructive criticism. How we can move from bad, you know, the Postmaster General said things were going from bad to worse before this administration came. Now, if it has moved from worse to bad now, in quotes, let's see how we can push it to good and better. And I can tell you, my friend Daniel here said, talk about some of the policies of the previous government. Before, each government that comes to power puts away the achievement and plans of the other previous government. This particular government has not done that. If you go to Abuja now, the FCT minister has been busy completing uncompleted projects, from the airports, flyover, down to most of the flyovers and roads and whatever projects. There's no new plan. Most of those things are being completed. The debt we are talking about, how did they come about? Inflated contract? Nobody. See, what we're talking about.
The debt. He's talking about money borrowed within the lifespan of this administration.
Let me just tell
you.
So
if they inflated contract, who inflated them? Personnel of this government?
No, let's be realistic. How do you get that?
No, we are not talking about money borrowed outside this administration.
See, in elementary economics, you spend yourself out of inflation. Okay. When you are faced with stagflation, whereby you're not moving forward or go, you know. Currently, look at the money, look at the collaboration between Nigeria and Morocco. Before, the price of fertilizer, a bag of fertilizer, was 13,500 naira. Today, it is, that's the time you had what you call fertilizer millionaires or billionaires. Today, a price of fertilizer is 5,500 because the Kingdom of Morocco and Nigeria, they have collaborated and they have fertilizer plants in many of the zones. Look at the rice revolution. You talk about Lake Rice, Kebbi State and Lagos State coming together in partnership. Look at Dangote investment in rice. Look at Anambra State. Look at Ebonyi State. So many of the states. On those, you heard the president's speech, whereby he was talking about the states who are going back to agric. Before I participated in the campaign.
So
let me tell you,
this
the price of oil, excuse me,
borrowings,
they are for capital projects. For instance,
within 2 years of the last plan of this administration, more money seems to have been borrowed.
Nigeria was -9 into retrogression. Today is 0.55. That is means Nigeria is in plus. That's why you move from
-9 from where? From where? From what point?
Excuse me, what I'm talking about?
This
when we went into recession.
Who's rating? Fitch or?
Excuse me, when we went to recession.
Recession.
Yes, you understand
under whose administration?
The recession started. You remember the?
I'm coming. I want to limit you to your.
You remember.
I know you're itching. I'm coming.
You remember the coordinator of the economy and finance, Minister of Finance, under the administration of Goodluck Jonathan, Dr. Okojo-Iweala, said the way things were going, if we do not save, we don't have sovereign wealth fund, that Nigeria is going to go into problem. But the early warning alerts were there. By the time the election will come, the prices have started going down. drop as far as low as $28. The highest we find now was maybe last week, $58. And at that time, the projection for the budget was what? $75. You know? So what we're talking about is that, what do we do now? What I want us to talk about, what do we do? How do we work in concert to move this country forward?
Okay, let me put you on hold there. Sadiq Bui, he spoke about loans money borrowed. Your sector, your organization, ordinarily should be one of the agencies, if I'm right, that should be generating huge in this country. NIPOST and all other postal services are huge, very huge sources of revenue for the government. Is there any way your agency, prior to your comment, has not lived up to its expectation? And now, what is changing? How much are you generating? How much have you generated? What can you bring to the national revenue?
What I'm bringing to the table is that in the last 1 year, I have assiduously worked in close concert with members of top management board, and I've reduced recurrent expenditure by close to 50%.
Does that include sacking people?
I don't have power to sack because the federal government of Nigeria
So
pays.
how did you reduce recurrent expenditure?
There are various components of recurrent expenditure. What you do is to block the gate, reduce wastages, and grow revenue. But the question to be asked is, other postal administrations that are doing very well, their governments did not abandon their massive national infrastructure. The previous government never invested in NIPOST. And let me say this, addressing is a vital national infrastructure for socio-economic development. In the last 15 years, national addressing system could not move because the previous government never cared.
Can we put a hold
now,
on that a little
what
bit?
this government, National Addressing Council, is the initiative to ensure that you have robust standard addressing so that you
What happened? Can we put now, if in the last 50 years,
Let me tell you what
now
we have done.
57 years of Nigeria, we do not have a functional addressing system up until when probably your administration started.
So
what has gone wrong?
Well, it's not for me to answer that question.
Okay, people
but
before
for me,
you,
it's
who
for me
were
to tell you.
probably civil servants, probably trained
No,
on the job.
the government must set policies, direction. It's
So
for
there
this-
were no policies, there were no direction.
There were policies, but they were never implemented. Now, just last week, under this government, the Council for National Addressing Standard was inaugurated by the Vice President. I am going to drive it as the Postmaster General. In conjunction with the latest technology, I came here barely 7 months ago that we signed a memorandum of understanding with Word3 Words, a UK-based tech company, hyper-specific addressing solution that will integrate with our postcode system. We're embarking on address verification, authentication, and validation, which has the capacity to reduce crime by at least 30 to 40%, because we are going to be matching people's faces with their addresses. This is the first time this is happening. Journey of transformation. We are starting financial services, agency banking, that NIPOST was not carrying out before. We have entered into memorandum of association with private sector initiative just 2 weeks ago. NIPOST signed a memorandum of understanding with Bank of Agriculture. You know, we have massive national infrastructure all over Nigeria, and they're going to use our platform to help our farmers in areas of storage, areas of agency banking. We are aggressively pursuing financial inclusion to reduce poverty at the lowest level, to create wealth. The Central Bank of Nigeria, in conjunction with NIPOST, is working together. As the Postmaster General of Nigeria, I am driving it. We are resuscitating. Listen to this. E-money order that have been abandoned for several years. In the 1960s, you would readily agree with me that postal order was available. When I was in secondary school, people would receive registered mail. They would be sent postal order, and you will cash it from the post office. What happened? Disruptive technology came, but we have found solution to it that will begin to do transactions on e-money order. Electronic stamp. What technology has taken away from us, what they call disruptive technology, it has, through another channel, multiple channels for that matter, point of sales, internet, e-commerce and all of that, we have developed the first of its kind electronic stamp that we are set to launch on October 9th, the World Post Day. This is happening under this present government, and we need time, we need patience for all these things to mature, because laying foundation is by far difficult than when you are putting building blocks. I'm not here to criticize anybody, but I'm here to tell you what a critical agency, a national infrastructure that has its presence on the nooks and crannies of Nigeria is doing in order, again, let me say this, we are going to disperse postal outlets, and that is capable of generating employment. The demographic architecture of Nigeria consists of 65% of youth, 70 to 80 million people. In the past, they were not patronizing NIPOS because NIPOS was a monoproduct organization. We are diversifying, and therefore, we are attracting the youth of Nigeria. The youth are the future of tomorrow. These are entrepreneurs. These are people who are into music. These are people who are into fashion. We are also going to encourage medium and small-scale enterprises because they will use our outlets in all the parts of Nigeria. The multiplier effect of that is humongous. Okay. The value chain is very long.
I get this straight. Before you came in as a Postmaster General, do you have an idea what NIPOS was generating in terms of revenue to Nigeria?
Barely 4 billion naira. Because, per annum. Because
what was the worth of NIPOS at the time? Generating 4 billion. If NIPOS was generating 4 billion before you,
because it was
what should they have been generating?
Because it was a monoproduct organization.
So what was its worth to generate?
There are too many products I've mentioned to you now. We have created 6 commercial business units.
Now, I'm still talking about prior to you. I'm talking, they were generating 4 billion per annum. Yeah. As of that time before you came, what was NIPOS worth in terms of ability to generate if it had been fully utilized?
NIPOS has the ability to generate several billions of naira. Let me draw your attention to what has been erroneously referred to as stamp duties. It's an old law that you have an obligation to denote your document, your instrument, your receipts by a 50 naira stamp. But because of the advent of disruptive technology, there are so many transactions going on online, point of sales, that you will not be able to use your manual stamp. Now we have developed electronic stamp that we will massively deploy, and that is capable of generating several billions of naira, if not trillions, into the coffers of the federal government, because all the monies will go into TSA. Now, for the very first time, the Stamp Duties Act is before the National Assembly in order for us to have included electronic stamp so that we can be part of and participate in the ever-increasing, exponentially growing e-commerce.
Okay. Since you became the Postmaster, how much have you generated?
I've raised revenue to about 7 billion.
Okay.
Because I've reduced wastages, the current expenditure has gone down, revenue is going up. But once we expand the productive base, we diversify.
Did the government give you any target revenue?
No,
so you have a target revenue?
No, the government has not given me any target revenue. What we are doing is to lay foundation to transform. And the journey has commenced, and we're going to launch this product.
In another 1 year, what is NIPOS likely to generate?
Certainly by the time they pass the postal reform bill.
How soon could that be?
That's good. Well,
we don't know.
I know, and I'll tell you why.
Because of the previous experience with National Assembly.
I'll tell you why.
Will it happen in the lifespan of this?
It's going to happen before the end of the year or latest first quarter of next year, and I'll tell you why. The last stage of amending a law is public hearing. We have done the public hearing for Stamp Duties Act, and we have done the public hearing for Postal Reform Bill. What is left to be done is for the committee saddled with the writing of the report to lay it before the House, and they will pass it, and the President will assent. It's happening under this present administration.
So if that happens, how much are you likely to be generating? Which
means that one, we will be able
don't give a fake
to use
revenue.
Please take that back. I don't give fake revenue. Please.
No, I didn't say fake.
That's not right.
I didn't say fake. I said fake. V-A-G-U-E.
It's not going to be
open.
It's not
like
it's not,
billion,
it's
not fake.
It's not going to be. It's not going to be vague, because it's going to be based on the fact that new streams of income will be generated. Address verification will bring in billions of naira for NIPOS. Agency banking.
Do you have say in the next 1 year, the total revenue
I will come back here for the roll of the tape. I was here 6 months ago, and I told you the latest version of IPS track and trace. It has never happened before. Under this government, people will be tracking and tracing their documents online, because we brought in people from Switzerland
with all this
people.
Development and innovation happening under you.
Yeah.
How much will you be able to generate in another 1 year into the national?
I'm telling you, I will generate billion, 200, 300 billion.
Okay,
as
so
the case may be.
I hold you.
I will come back
that by 2018, by this time 2018, the Postmaster General has assured that the innovations coming in will generate 200 billion.
We will generate billions of naira. Let me tell you, the other time I came here, I promised Nigerians, on my honor and integrity, that we are working on migrating from the analog to the latest IPS track and trace system. We are fulfilling that promise. It is on live. So once I say I'm going to do something,
what does that imply?
What it implies is that we have joined other committee of postal administrations that are deploying latest track and trace. The soul of postal system is for people to be able to track and trace their parcel and packages from the comfort of their room, from their offices. That has been done. All you have to do is
if I send something,
if you send a package or a parcel, go to of course they'll give you a tracking number. Go to nipos.gov.ng, click on trace and confirm, enter the tracking number, and then you begin to monitor your parcel, your mails real time from one point to the other. That has just been achieved. A whole lot.
Okay, let me put you on hold, sir. Elomba.
Yes.
In the years before, every administration claims innovation. When the lifespan of this administration expires, when, we don't know, and another administration comes on board, all this will also become history. And the new administration will also claim innovation. Probably if it's an opposition, then rubbishing what administration. Do we have a system of continuity, a system of applaud, a system of appreciation?
Yeah, listening to this honorable gentleman here now, it kind of validates what I have often opined is the major problem with our country. You see this gentleman who has clearly stated here what he has been able to achieve.
Absolutely.
With NIPOS within the past.
Just 1 year.
1 year, 1 month. 1 year, 1 month.
Just 1 year. So Nigeria thrives in a situation where...
And it's not from the civil service, public sector.
Good. So it thrives in a situation where when you get an individual who is devoted to his duty, who knows what he is going to do, you see achievement under him. But then the system is built on individual rather than on the system. Institution. You see that with EFCC, for instance, under Nuhu Ribadu when Obasanjo was in power. You see Nuhu Ribadu who is fearless, courageous. dedicated with what he's going to do. And you see his achievement with EFCC, even though there isn't, but you see the achievement under him. And then when he left, we don't see much achievement under Farida Waziri and the other gentleman. Madu now can be said to be achieving something within the limits of his office. So Nigeria is, even with this present president now, a lot of factors were hinged on him as an individual when he was coming to power. So people expected him to perform magic. And when he came in, unfortunately, a lot also depends on him. So when he got sick, a lot of things got off stagnated. But Nigeria will perform better if institutions are built up. And I will repeat it here. When Goodluck Jonathan is no longer in power, so it's not as if I'm praising him. He has limitations, but he as president is someone who believes in building institutions without interfering with their activities, giving them the necessary opportunities, the necessary laws for them to perform. And that is why we have some innovations introduced into the system, into the tax system, into the revenue system, into the customs clearance system, into the civil service system that saved also a lot of money for Nigeria. So Nigeria should be able to develop institutions. President Obama said, I think in 2008, that Africa will thrive not on shoulders of strong men, but on shoulders of strong institutions. It will be nice if what our gentleman is replicating in the NIPOS, if the system allows institutions to be built to carry out these innovations without hindrance, because unless that is done, we will still, in the next 57 years, we may still be telling these stories. Okay. Unless institutions are built up.
Thank you, Mr. Lomba. You've got 1 minute because I need to go now. Recap.
Well, all said and done, there are two things. Talking about strong personality, talking about the community of people. The Nigerian, sorry to say, we used to have what we call the vulture culture, where people have the sense of entitlement without hinging on responsibility, where people pray for little work and high reward. I've said it somewhere before, and I've written about it, that Buharism is a culture to be nurtured for the future. He may not be a perfect person. Everybody agrees that he doesn't steal. He may not be the best of a business person, but the fact remains that you need to use the ACE, acceleration, create a foundation, then others will consolidate on it, then you expand it in future. We must move from one generation to another, but we should not talk ill of our country. The fact remains that we can criticize, but cynicism is not allowed. Okay. Because critics will connect and correct.
Okay.
Nigeria has a bright future.
Where are we moving on from here? He's spoken about strong individuals. We don't know how long. Everybody does agree that you have brought a huge innovation into the postal service system in Nigeria. Post Mr. Bisi Adegboye, what are you creating?
That's why we are corporatizing NIPOS. What does corporatization mean? We are turning NIPOS a public postal operator that will be governed by the laws of Company and Allied Matters Act, which means it becomes a public limited liability company. All the successes, all the innovations
will be owned by Nigerians.
Will be owned by Nigeria, and they will become irreversible because it will become a limited liability company with perpetual succession.
So if you're leaving that as a legacy.
I agree with him absolutely that you need to create institutions, you need to put systems in place. And that's why the National Assembly, with due respect to them, regardless of what anybody might want to say, they have said they will pass all legislations that will aid in reforming, in transforming Nigeria, including but not limited to Nigeria Postal Service. And that is why on October 9th, the journey of transformation continues apace, solidified, recalibrated, because we are launching new, innovative, game-changing products in Abuja. October 9th, World Post Day, Postal Revolution is underway, and it is irreversible.
All right, awesome. My guest, Salaba Yusuf, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Always nice to be with you.
My pleasure.
Good day, Nigerians.
Daniel Olumba, thank you for joining us on this show. We look forward to having you again. The Postmaster General and CEO NIPOS, Mr. Bisi Adegboye. Pleasure having you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Join us again. And of course, it is clear the huge advancement that has taken place in NIPOST under your watch.
Thank you.
We do hope that 6-7 years' time, your legacy will stand.
I'll come back here next year. Roll off the tape.
Okay. All right. My name is Tunde Alabi. Thank you for being part of the program. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye. In the UK. Join us live every Monday at 10 a.m. to 12 noon. As part of our continued efforts to reach the African and